Thanks. You may be seated. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The July 16th, 2025 meeting of the City Council will now come to order at 6 o'clock. May we please have roll?
Jessica Ayers. Here. Nick Card.
Here.
Kevin Keating. Here. Mike Kurlinger.
Here.
John Quinn.
Here.
Zach Smith. Kevin Stein.
Here.
And Garrett West.
Here.
We have 7 present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. City manager reports. Mr. Field.
In the interest of time, we are going to defer until the next meeting.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Item 30, community recognitions and community group reports. 30.1, employee recognition. Ms. Barish.
Good evening. My name is Bonnie Barish. I'm your HR director, and I have the privilege of doing employee recognition, which tonight, I guess vacation season is upon us because nobody is here. So, hopefully, we will get started. Service anniversary, Public Works Technician, Cody Vall. He has been with us for 20 years of service, so congratulations to Cody. Plus the fact that he has to be up at 4 in the morning. I'm not blaming him. Or at work at 4 in the morning. Carrie Bone, a police crime analyst, is 20 years of service. So please congratulate Carrie. And last but not least, Steve First, a police sergeant with 30 years of service. So congratulations to Steve. And with that, that concludes our employee recognition.
Awesome. Thank you, Bonnie, and thank you for all those years of outstanding service. Item 30.2, Mr. Rosenthal, 2025 Friends of Parks and Recreation Awards.
Good evening, councilors. Rich Rosenthal, your Parks and Recreation Director, and there are a lot of Parks and Recreation advocates in the room tonight, and that is because it is the annual Friends of Medford Parks and Recreation Award time. And every year since 2005, the Parks and Recreation Commission, working with the department, honors individuals, businesses, and other service groups with these Friends of Medford Parks and Recreation Awards. The awards are presented every year to recognize contributions to parks and recreation initiatives and our strategic plan. And so we have 6 honorees here tonight, and we will start with individual awards. And first up, in the individual category, for the past several years, James Livingston typically spends 3 or 4 days per week as a volunteer in service to grounds maintenance at the historic IOOF Eastwood Cemetery. Since June of 2024, he has donated over 320 hours of time mowing, weed whacking, and uncovering and helping repair headstones there. So congratulations to James Livingston. Next up, also in the individual category, another volunteer. Ginny Franklin has been a Parks volunteer since 2023, amassing over 230 hours volunteer time helping with ongoing park and cemetery maintenance events. She has also spent over 80 hours volunteering at the Santo Community Center on the grounds, removing weeds, removing trash, and helping maintain the pollinator garden there. We are so grateful for Ginny Franklin. Next up is the business category. And Dr. Dana and Joe Schmidl have been generous and enthusiastic supporters of Parks and Recreation programs, and her orthodontic practice has sponsored the department's wildly popular father-daughter and mother-son dances since 2016. We're grateful for Schmidl Orthodontics. Next up in the community service category, the Rogue Valley Umpires Association, led by Commissioner Jerry Eklund, who's in his 57th year as a local umpire. That's a lot of ball and strike calls. He's one of 45 RVUA members, and they cover over 1,700 youth and adult baseball games in the Medford area every year. The association is the lifeblood of our youth baseball tournaments at Lithia and Driveway Fields, and without them, there would be no games, and we would not have economic impact like we do without Rogue Valley Umpires Association. Jerry is here. Moving on to the youth group organization, it's the Southern Oregon Futsal League. The volunteer-coordinated indoor soccer program has provided free or low-cost recreation for over 4,000 kids between ages 8 and 19 on Friday evenings for the past 15 years. Volunteers Julian Cordell, Scott Stewart, and Chelsea Valdez organized games for 330 kids, primarily from Medford, over the past 2 years at the Rogue X. And we're happy to have Scott Stewart, the board president, Julian Cordell, and Dave Kaufman, one of the founders of the program, and there are others here. This is a big group, and we're so grateful for the Southern Oregon Futsal League. Okay, it's a lot like the Grammys. We're on the last one. This is the showstopper. This is the Olsrud Family Lifetime Service Award. We don't give this one out every year. This is a category that honors people who have been helping and making an impact in the community for years and years. Bill Mance is the recipient. Bill is the driving force behind the annual Medford Cruise, the gathering of cars and car enthusiasts in downtown Medford, now in its 40th year. The event has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars that go to kid-related causes over the years, and if it wasn't for Bill, it wouldn't be possible. And he's in rare company. Previous recipients of the Lifetime Service Awards, Jerry McLeod, the longtime Parks and Recreation Commissioner, Al Densmore, former councilor, legislator, mayor, former Mayor Wheeler, Greg Jones, Brian Shotun, and the late, great Jim Hutchins. And so it's a great honor to honor Bill Mance. I'll jump in.
I asked Rich if I could address the council, and I wanted you to know that each and every year over the 40 years, the city of Medford has set aside the ability for us to have your public works department, your police department, your parks department, your park, and your downtown that creates this amazing event. And without that commitment, it would be impossible for us to do this. I've only been around 24 of them, so Jerry, I don't have 47 years of service. I just wanted to thank you guys for continuing that support. We have given over $620,000 in our lifetime, so very, very proud, and it takes tons of volunteers, but mostly it takes your commitment. Thank you.
That concludes this agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. And congratulations to our recipients. Thank you for the countless hours of volunteer work. You truly have made our community a better place to live. Thank you. Item 30.3, on-track update. Unfortunately, on-track is not available to attend tonight's meeting. Oh, yeah. We've got a lot of people here for the awards, so please feel free to step out. On-track is, what? Yeah, lock the doors. No, you have to stay. Time's up. On-track's not able to attend tonight, so we're going to reschedule their update. And item 30.4, Medford Water's quarterly update. Medford Water Manager Brad Taylor coming down to let us know what's going on. Brad, take it away.
Good evening, councilors. Brad Taylor, General Manager of Medford Water. Glad to be here to provide you a quarterly update where tonight I'm going to focus some attention on some work that we did in 2023 around our Southeast Master Plan. I'm going to give you a high-level overview of this work to understand the effort that's been put into keeping up with growth in that area of Medford. So the reason why we chose this area to look at specifically is this is the area of the system that's highlighted in the red solid line that's shown in the figure, where it takes additional pumping, piping, and reservoirs to serve these areas. And so it's critical to look at this as a system in terms of understanding how it's going to be served in the long term. We looked at it through both the 10-year view, build-out conditions of the urban growth boundary with an estimated time frame of 2040. And then we also looked out to building out the urban reserve area, which on this diagram are the hatched areas shown on the figure. This gives us a complete view of how to support infrastructure needed as development occurs in these areas as we move forward. So one thing to recognize in this next diagram that's up in front of you on your screens is zoomed in that area that was highlighted by that red line on the previous figure. But within this area, if you're familiar with this part of town, there's a lot of elevation difference. And as we go and we develop water systems to serve these areas, we have to break them up into zones. And those zones are approximately about 150 feet in vertical elevation. And the reason why we do that is because we have to control the amount of pressure that's delivered to the customer. So that's why we break it up into these zones. And those shaded areas on the map, the different colors of shading, represents the 8 zones that would be needed to ultimately serve the area out to that urban reserve areas. So each zone requires separate piping, pumping, and storage. And that has to be thought out in terms of how that's going to work and how it's all interconnected. And oftentimes topography and system development timing can drive the need to serve those zones through multiple groups of infrastructure just because you're not able to connect them directly with piping because of distance or again topography. So there certainly creates challenges in terms of not only the technical aspect of it, but the financial aspect of it. So this plan also laid out recommendations for capital infrastructure improvements that are needed for water storage, pumping, and piping. And we do this based on operational criteria. In terms of service standards and or conditions of service. And I want to just highlight this and just to give you context to how that planning takes place. And we're going to start off by talking about water reservoirs. So a water reservoir has three components of storage associated when you go to design the volume of the reservoir. One is equalization, otherwise more known internally as operational storage, emergency storage, and fire storage. So when we design those reservoirs, we have to design specifically relative to those three criteria. The first one, equalization and operational, this is typically sized for 25% of the maximum day demand. And this graph here shows you a typical curve for a summertime use in one of these zones, or actually it shows 5 zones here. But the point of this is the reason why you have to design that into a reservoir is it acts like the shock absorber on your car. When those high demands hit early in the morning, which this graph is showing, they're hitting at 6 a.m., people turning on irrigation, people showering, people getting ready to go to work, that kind of thing. It hits the system really hard. And if you had to design pumps and piping, or primarily pumps, to just match that, it would be difficult. So that's why this particular component of a reservoir is designed that way to help you buffer those demands during those peak conditions that happen in the morning. So that's operational and or equalization storage. The second component is emergency storage. And this is really there to help us buffer things like water main breaks, power outages, things that are unplanned. And we design that to be able to provide average day demand for a complete day to that zone. And that's built into each reservoir. The third component relates to fire flow, and I think this is an important one, and one of the reasons of going through this to make this point clear and understood, that when we are designing reservoirs for fire flow, we're not designing reservoirs to fight wildland fires. We're designing reservoirs to provide fire flow for structure fire and a limited amount of structure fire. And we base that on the zoning criteria associated with the highest zoned land within those pressure zones. And this table breaks out that we have different volumes or flow rates and times associated with if it's a low density residential, medium density, commercial, and or general industrial or schools. And these are the criteria that are then used to put that amount of volume in the design of these storage tanks. So those three components, when you add them all up together, that's what drives the volume of the tank and ultimately what we build in each of those zones to support growth and development. Currently, just as we get a little bit later, we'll talk about costs, but in general, water storage is about $3 per gallon to build. So it doesn't take, you don't have to start putting a lot of water in tanks to all of a sudden start spending a lot of money in order to do it. And you'll see that as we get a little bit further. And I don't have a ton of material, so I'm not going to talk all night, so if you're worried about that. So moving on to piping and pumping criteria, real high level. Piping is primarily, the sizing of piping is primarily driven by fire flows. That's historically really the thing that drives the sizing of pipe. The other thing that we make note of is just the ability to move water from a pump station to a reservoir. So that oftentimes, combined with fire flow, can relate to how we size the diameters of pipe. Pump stations, we design those to a firm capacity to the maximum day demand. And when we're talking about maximum day demand, we're looking out to a projection of that maximum day demand when we're talking about these conditions that are 10 years into the future or further. And firm capacity, in terms of terminology, means that that pump station can deliver that maximum day demand of water with the largest pump out of service. And again, we do these things for reliability and redundancy, which brings us right into the next slide. To highlight that as we build this infrastructure, it's from a reliability standpoint, making sure we have adequate storage is important. Having redundant infrastructure and piping and pumping is important. Having alternative power sources associated with things that require power are important. Interconnecting between zones and working hard to not have dead ends and keep a looped water system. All these things help us be more reliable and build a more resilient water infrastructure system. All right, so what does it mean? What's the big takeaway here? And just wanted to run through going through those criteria and laying out those systems that are needed. What that translated to in the 10-year view was approximately an investment of $37 million in order to build that infrastructure. Taking that out and between that 10-year view and building out to the build-out condition of the urban growth boundary is an additional $62 million. And then going one step further and building out to the urban reserve, that's an additional $21 million. So a total of $121 million in today's dollars is projected to be needed to be spent in order to support the development and growth in the southeast part of Medford. So where are we at with making that happen and supporting those activities? So the projects that are in the 10-year view are in our 10-year capital plan. And this year, we're actually building the Barnett Pump Station, which is a Zone 2 pump station. And this map zooms us into the location of where the Barnett Pump Station will be located. For those of you familiar with the area, it will be near or just east of the crossroads of Barnett Road and North Phoenix Road. And actually, the city has a fire station right near there as well. So the pump station will be located not too far from there. So this project is under, or the construction award has been given. This project is projected to cost $4.5 million. It will look something like the picture up there. That's not the Barnett Pump Station, but it is designed very similarly. It's approximately a 12-month construction, so we should be done late 2026 with the project. The other projects are in the 10-year view are in various stages of planning and design work in order to keep them on track to being constructed and built within the 10-year view. And again, the point of sharing this with the council, I think, is just a recognition or an understanding of the amount of infrastructure needed to serve the upper levels of Medford, and hopefully this gives you a little bit of context for that. So with that, that concludes my update, and I'll be open to any questions.
Any questions from Mr. Taylor? Mr. Quinn.
Brad, how
Thank
are you?
you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too.
So of the 120, how are you, I guess we could focus on the initial 10-year amount. How are you funding it? SDCs, rates? How do you break it out, and how do you do the math?
Yeah. So the 10-year view, 37 million, that number is built into a combination of the rate and SDC components, and not all these projects are 100% development driven. Sometimes a reservoir or sometimes a pump station. There's parts of those new constructions that feed existing demand and or provide a backup or redundancy to existing demand. So it's a combination of rates and SDCs. Our SDCs have a public hearing on them. The first meeting in August. Those updated numbers reflect supporting these projects in the 10-year view.
And what's the breakdown in general, if you know that right now?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Be happy to provide that or pass that information on in more detail, though.
Oh, good. That was my question. Thanks,
Yeah.
Brad.
Any other questions for Mr. Taylor? Awesome. Thank you for coming, Brad. We appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All righty. With that, we move on to item 40, oral requests and communications from the audience. Council sets aside 30 minutes for in-person public comments. Comments are limited to 2 minutes per person or organization. As outlined in the agenda, public may also submit written comments to the council. Winnie, please note the written comments received for the record.
Yes, Mr. President, we received written comments from 3 people. Gary Sumrak submitted comments outlining his opinions regarding Main Street reconfiguration. Kathy Halloway submitted written comments requesting the council waive her code enforcement citation related to her trees. And Joy Falzone Rame, hopefully I pronounced that right, submitted written comments outlining concerns regarding the legal use of fireworks. Comments were submitted to the mayor, the city council, and appropriate staff. Comments are also available on the city's website. There were no other written comments received for agenda item 40.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Before hearing public comments, I'd like to note the decorum policy for the council chambers. Use of noisemakers or disruptive audience behavior, such as applause, cheering, or shouting, is not permitted. Decorum violations are time-consuming and disrespectful to the speaker and all attendees. Failure to follow the basic standards of decorum may result in removal from the meeting. Finally, I'd like to emphasize that this is your opportunity to provide comments to the council and is not intended to be a time for question and answers. If you have completed a public comment form, please come to the front of the room when your name is called. The time is 6:26 p.m. Public comments will be heard until 6:56 p.m. Winnie, has anyone completed a public comment form for tonight's meeting?
Yes, Mr. President, we received 2 public comment forms, one from Kathy Halloway and one from Jack Rame.
Ms. Halloway, can you come?
Sorry,
in front?
Hathaway.
Hathaway, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
You'll excuse me for speaking quickly. It turned from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. So I would like to request that a citation be reversed. The citation and a $250 fine was for an overhanging tree. A beautiful linden tree in full bloom, causing it to droop significantly from the weight. I have 2 points. I ask that you reverse the citation because I expected that I would get an extension, and I feel that your tree code needs revising. First, I received a notice of violation just before I left on a trip. The work had to be done in just over a week, but I was leaving in 2 days. I trimmed it, although I will not get on a ladder, and there was no free labor at my house, so I did it myself. I called code enforcement and let them know that the tree was in bloom and that I had done some trimming. When I got back, I received a citation with the fine. No call back to work with me, no interaction at all, even though an extension would have been appropriate. She knew I was leaving town. She knew I was trying to work with her. Why did you do that? This doesn't seem appropriate for the city of Medford. Second, did you know that rogue disposal complains about trees and causes trees to be drastically cut in weird shapes to meet your 15-foot above the roadway rule? There's usually no shade left after a tree is cut in this fashion. I mention that because my tree is not in the way of rogue disposal's truck. I have a photo that shows that which you have, which shows that a car is always parked under it in the daytime. Somebody who carpools with a neighbor each day parks under my tree, and no trash cans can be placed near it. So there's no need for the truck to go under it. Therefore, I don't understand why the complaint. I wonder how many complaints through the city you received, because looking at my neighborhood, probably 25% of the street trees do not fit your criteria. Can you imagine major pruning to 25% of Medford shade trees in this blazing hot summer? I respectfully suggest that you go out and look at Medford street trees and consider revising your criteria, taking into consideration that rogue disposal's automated arm has probably a 12-foot reach. Maybe that wasn't available when you created your rules. So I planted this tree in 2003 when we bought this house before it was built. It was acceptable on your list then. It is still acceptable, but it certainly doesn't work as a street tree. I ask that you reverse the citation because I expected that I would get an extension. I feel that your tree code needs revising. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to make a comment, Mr. Mitten's off. Mr. Mitten, can I direct her to you if later? I mean, obviously you have to do this. I know there's a process and a procedure.
Yeah, so code enforcement citations are handled through the municipal court, and there's an opportunity for a hearing with the judge there. It's not just that citation issues and you automatically have to pay. You have an opportunity for a hearing with the judge to be able to speak to that. I can give you my card and I can follow up with some more information
I was trying to avoid that because it's actually the city of Medford that caused the problem, that because it didn't give me the extension that I should have been able to receive. So I thought it was a city of Medford problem.
So
And I was wondering-
I understand the issue here, but we do have a meeting to continue. So if you could take Mr. Mitten's card, and then Mr. Mitten can follow up with you at a later date. Thank you. Next. Who is the name? I'm sorry.
It's Jack Rame.
Come on down.
Hello, I'm here to address the fireworks issue also, and that my wife had already sent one in here. One of the things is I'd like the council to kind of consider future guidelines for the use of fireworks within Medford. It's starting to get out of hand. Some of these they're not fireworks. They're not safe and sane. They're explosions. When you're sitting in your house, the windows and doors are clogged, your house shutters, and you feel a pressure wave come through the building. That's not not a reasonable outfit. As far as enforcement goes, Medford PD should be able to do something about it, but I know they're stretched, and it is difficult because there's so many of them going off at one time. A lot of times, some directed enforcement will calm that kind of a thing down, but it's just getting progressively worse, and it seems like everybody's, instead of just really celebrating the 4th, in a reasonable manner, it's like they're having contests to who can make, the most disruption. And so I just wondered if the council could, look into that possibly for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here tonight that did not complete a public comment form and would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to the minutes. Item 50, approval or correction of the July 2nd, 2025 minutes. We've received draft minutes from the July 2nd, 2025 regular meeting. Does anyone have any revisions or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, minutes will stand as submitted. Item 60, consent calendar. There's no items on the consent calendar. Item 70, nothing's on the consent calendar. Item 80, ordinances and resolutions. 2 items for consideration tonight. Mr. Mitten.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item 80.1 is Council Bill 2025-65, an ordinance approving and authorizing execution of a contract in the amount of $936,813 with Shaw Flooring Services, Inc. for removal and replacement of worn synthetic
Time's up,
turf.
Mr. Mitten.
Apparently, I took too long. Of worn synthetic turf on fields 7 and 9 at Lithia and Driveway Fields.
Thank you very much. Would anyone like a staff report? Or do we have a motion? Mr. Stein.
I move to approve Council Bill 2025, Tax 65.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All righty. May we have a roll call, please?
Kevin Stein.
Yes.
Jessica Ayers.
Yes.
Nick Card.
Yes.
Garrett West.
Yes.
Mike Curlinger.
Yes.
Kevin Keating.
Yes.
And John Quinn.
Yes.
We have 7 yes.
Thank you very much. That item passes. 80.2, Mr. Mitten.
Thank you, Mr. President. 80.2 is Council Bill 2025-66, a resolution submitting to the electors of the City of Medford at the November 4th, 2025 special election the question of raising the maximum rate of the City of Medford's transient lodging tax from 11% to 13%.
Staff report, please.
All right, Council Eric Mitten, your city attorney, here to present on the transient lodging tax matter. So first off, for folks in the audience who may not be fully up to speed, I thought an important threshold question: what is transient lodging tax? This is a tax on hotels, motels, Airbnbs, similar things. It's not a tax on long-term rentals, your typical residential landlord-tenant matter. When you rent a hotel in the City of Medford, there's a tax to the city that is part of the rate you pay for your hotel room. Why are we discussing this now? There's a lot of discussion, and I'll share very briefly this term Creekside Quarter. There was a big discussion at the Chamber of Commerce this Monday. The Creekside Quarter is an idea of development, a public-private partnership, and this is one of many pieces of funding we're looking at this project. The Creekside Quarter would be, and I'll jump to the map here. It's a mix of public and private assets. In this map, you'll see on the east side of I-5, you've got what is currently Hawthorne Park. You could see a baseball stadium there. On the west side, a conference center and various commercial and residential development. This is, I stress this to everyone in the audience, exceedingly preliminary. This is a high-level concept. This is not a promise of this is what it will look like, but there is discussion going on with developers and other stakeholders about a significant investment in a public-private partnership that could catalyze change in downtown and be a significant anchor point for redevelopment of downtown. And so part of the discussion of how to fund this, there are a lot of different pieces in terms of how to fund this, and a lot of different parts of this. One part of potential funding for certain portions of this might potentially be an increase in the transient lodging tax. That rate cannot be increased without a vote of the electors of the city. In our charter, it sets the maximum rate for transient lodging tax, and we do need a vote of the electors to make any change there. Now, what would go to the voters if this resolution is passed is just an increase in the maximum rate. There's also plenty of discussion as part of investigating this project in terms of sideboards, because the charter sets what the maximum rate is, and then the municipal code sets what the actual rate is, how we collect it, what's subject to transient lodging tax, what isn't, etc. And so there's been a lot of internal discussion about sideboards on how much the TLT would actually increase, how it would be used, what it would be used for. And so procedurally, I want to make clear that there's really two separate things for council to consider right here. The first is whether or not to refer an increase in the maximum rate to the voters. And then if council is interested in placing sideboards on how it intends on using that increase, whether there is an increase of the full 2% or a more limited amount, et cetera, a sunset provision, other sideboards, et cetera. Staff would ask for a motion to direct staff to start working up sideboard language to be brought back at a study session for refinement to make sure that any language matches council, and then ultimately we could reduce some of the sideboards to a resolution, setting expectations for the council of what it intends to do with the code if this were to pass in November. But those are two separate matters. And so in terms of what goes to the voters, the resolution has got the title that would go in the agenda, and then it's also got an explanatory statement. And first I'm showing what is the explanatory statement that went out in the agenda packet. It is exceptionally similar to the explanatory statement from 5 years ago when we last increased the TLT. Councillor West graciously suggested some revisions that do not change the substance of what is there, but they do aid in readability, and candidly, Garrett's version's better. So staff's recommendation, and we'll have this in the recommended motion, is that if the resolution is passed, that it specify that the West version of the explanatory statement is used. And we've got it up there if anyone needs more time to look at it. There's that. But with that, we've got a recommended motion. There's a lot here, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Mr. Quinn.
Eric, I was just curious about what, whether it taxes, well, let me back up, sorry. Sometimes hotel stays are for people who are in extremes, such as domestic violence victims, people who are experiencing homeless, et cetera, and that would be largely funded by government sources. Does the TLT apply to that? I'm not expressing a view on any of that. I just want to understand it.
Absolutely, it's a great question. So we have certain exemptions from our transient lodging tax, and one of those exemptions is if you stay in a room, even if it's a hotel room, for more than 27 days, it's not subject to transient lodging tax. And so if you've got a situation where someone is staying for 4 weeks or more in a hotel, they would not be subject to. Now, if you are looking at another exemption in terms of if they were staying funded by a government as part of a particular purpose, that is something that could be crafted into the municipal code in terms of list of exemptions of what is exempt from transient lodging tax. I don't know if we currently have an exemption that would fit that exact fact pattern, but we've got about 5 or 6 exemptions of things that may fall within the definition of transient lodging tax, but nevertheless are not subject to transient lodging tax in our code. And any additional exemptions could be built into our code.
I'm thinking, for example, for domestic violence victims, it wouldn't necessarily be over 27 days. It could just be, I can't be home, he got released from jail, or she got released from jail, no gender expression there. And I'm in fear, put me somewhere where he, she can't find me with the kids. That happens, and that can be maybe a matter of days, not a month. So that's something I'm just curious about.
So that's something we'd have to take a look in terms of how that's crafted. There's a lot of situations where the hotelier who's collecting the transient lodging tax may not be familiar with the circumstances of why an individual is staying there. And so there would have to be some work that could be done into it. But that's certainly something, as we look at our transient lodging tax municipal code sections, if council directed, we could take a look at potentially building out other exemptions.
The hotel would know because it would be a county voucher that they would be receiving as pay commonly.
Okay. I don't know if any of our exemptions currently would apply that fact pattern, but we could certainly look into it, and I can circle back with you on that.
And again, I'm going with my Siskiyou County experience more than Jackson County, but it would be some government or crisis center voucher is what I'm talking about. So do we charge tax on the government? I'm not, again, expressing a viewpoint. I'd just like to understand it.
I don't know off the top of my head if one of our exemptions covers that. Would you like me to take a look now or circle back with you on that?
Oh, it's not an emergency. I just am curious in the fullness of time.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Mr. Stein.
I move to approve the resolution as presented, including the West version of the explanatory statement.
Second. Mr. Stein.
So this got rolled out this week. Just the very precursory, preliminary. We're not actually putting a very big yellow line in the city, as we saw in the photo. There's a great opportunity here that I don't know. I don't know when the last opportunity happened like this, because I wouldn't been here for it. And I don't know when the next opportunity might come for something like this, but since it's here in front of us, it's something that we're pursuing. It's something we should be pursuing. There's no guarantees, but this is a portion of how we get to a part where we can really provide a lot of assets that go for the citizens that live here, for the businesses that are around here, for the general public, for just a better quality of life all around when you provide these amenities. This is working very similarly to what we did a few years ago with the Rogue X. There was a whole bunch of questions. There was a whole bunch of things that the city provided, that political groups provided on what could happen here by a massive 52-48 vote, primarily because that vote was in May of 2020, and the whole world shut down in March of 2020. So there was a whole lot of concerns about, doing something like this when everyone's, kind of stuck at home and then there's a bunch of negative things happening. I was actually pretty impressed with how positive most people were. Again, there's always going to be some people that aren't all on board, and I can totally understand that. That's just the nature of anything that we want to do. But when I look at these preliminary drawings, when you kind of envision the positivity that can come from this, if even a portion of this gets built out, as we hope, the great the great way we have to move forward as a city, and all that entails, especially as that build out could impact the greater downtown areas, and new investments there as well, whether that's restaurants or ice cream shops or bar scene, whatever that might be. I'm fully in support of moving forward, and as we work to try to get the rest of the pie together on how this can all come to fruition. This is a big part of how we want to do it. And so I am support.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Mr. Krillinger.
I'm also going to speak in support of this. I think it's worth reiterating what Eric just mentioned, which is this, if this passes the vote in November, doesn't actually do anything to our current TLT. It gives us the capacity to potentially increase it. It's also important to mention this is one aspect from multiple different funding sources we're considering. This is not, hey, we can go to 2, we're going to go to 2. Hey, we raised it, we're never going to consider lowering it again. We have some projects that have come before us that are really good opportunities that we want to try to pursue that are going to benefit the city. But we're not just saying, TLT, groovy, free money. This is how we're paying for everything. This is one piece of a major project that frankly is potentially bringing in the kind of outside investment that I can't think of any other project of this scope that we've pursued, and I've lived in Medford for a really long time. I think the other element to this is that this is a long-term goal and project. This isn't just building a baseball stadium. It's not just building a conference center. It's not just building a hotel. This is a really big first step in potentially changing the face of our downtown, which is something I know we've been trying to accomplish for a long time, and something that can be a step in transforming what Medford is and how we're viewed, especially regionally. And we would be really remiss if we didn't seriously look into this opportunity and try to take advantage of someone who's coming and saying, I want to invest in this city. The return on what the city is looking to put in here is it's not exponential. I won't be hyperbolic about it. It's significant. This isn't going to change anything in a day. I said when I was running for city council, I'm not looking at Medford on a 4-year timeline or 5-year timeline or 10-year timeline. I'm thinking 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. And the return we're going to get from this over that time is substantial, and I think going to be multiple times over any investment we might make in it. And we're all aware of the fact that there's a lot of moving pieces and things have been happening relatively quickly. And we've got 8, 9, 10 different things that need to happen for this to come together. Any one of those could hit a massive pitfall, and we may not be able to accomplish this on the timeline that we want to. But I, for one, am not willing to not give it a genuine effort because of the benefit this will provide the city.
Ms. Ayers.
I just want to acknowledge the concern that's been brought up by the hoteliers, and let them know that I do acknowledge that, and this vote does not guarantee that we will be increasing the TLT by 2%. That is not a decision that I would take lightly, so I just wanted to note that.
I want to go ahead and take my privilege of being chair to tack onto that, because I think that's an important piece to talk about this, is that the hoteliers have been a big part of what we've been able to accomplish as a city because of their support with Rogue X. We have built a world-class athletic facility and aquatics facility for Medford. And so, I want to acknowledge that the hoteliers do have some concerns about raising TLT in support of this project, and I think those are valid concerns. And so, in the spirit of partnership, I think it's really important that we understand and recognize where that is. A 2% number is a number that comes out of a study that was done looking at the feasibility for a conference center being funded in part by transient lodging tax. When you look at the entirety of the Creekside Corridor, the various components of it, the conference center is a really important component of that project. And when you look at total public funds that will have to go into something like the Creekside Quarter project, we will likely, it's not that TLT will pay for the entirety of any component. There will be extra money that has to go into that. Likely it's less than a third of public funding that will go into this project. Of course, so much is up in the air. We don't know exactly what that looks like. Obviously, hoteliers have a concern because there are issues about funding just a baseball stadium. The last thing hoteliers want to do is have their money funding a competitor if we're funding another hotel. So I think, your conversation about sideboards is very important, Eric, and I'll let the council know that after we get through this, I intend to make a motion that is going to direct staff to do some of these things for setting up those sideboards and beginning those conversations, because I think we need to get started on it now so we can have that engagement with our community as we move forward with this process. If we are successful in building the Creekside Quarter, we are not going to do it without our hoteliers' support. I do not see how we build this project for our community without having transient lodging tax as part of the funding mechanism. And I think when you put all of the pieces together with this Creekside Quarter, it's going to far exceed what any feasibility study will show when you look at one component in isolation. The combined project is massive. It's so much more than the sum of its parts. It's good for our community. It's going to draw more people in. It's going to be a multiplier for what it means to come visit to Medford. We have teams that come here for their athletic programs because we have some of the best athletic facilities in the world. When we have one of the best downtowns on the West Coast because of a $500 million public-private partnership, they will stay here and spend more money and stay longer nights. That's the vision I see for this. Call me optimistic, call me crazy. I don't care. I think it's a really cool thing, and I think it's a great thing for our community. So again, I really think that it's important we hear the concerns of the hoteliers. I think they've got to be a part of this process as we move forward. I have a motion that I hope addresses some of those concerns, but I'm definitely in support of this particular motion. We've got to move this forward. We've got to make sure those funds are available because this is a transformational project for our community. Mr. Quinn.
I agree with everything that was just said, and this is a particularly elegant solution. One of the primary goals of this project, apart from essentially getting a 10-to-1 multiplier for the public money, is to bring outside business in. A TLT is targeted towards people who are coming from the outside in. The people who we're asking to come here are financing the additional cost of them coming here. One of the biggest things I hear when I talk to voters is we don't want our monthly utility bill raised. We don't want to have another park fee, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This makes it so that is not necessary. We don't have to hit our people to get this money. We're taxing the people who are benefiting from what we're building for them, which are the people who are bringing money to us from outside. So it's a very, very sharp way to do it. And so everyone who has an initial concern, why are we raising taxes? Well, we're raising taxes in a way that doesn't raise taxes on the people that we protect and care for here, the 88 million people of Medford. It's a very 88,000. I'm sorry, I'm being exponential. 88,000 people of Medford. So I would urge people to fight their initial reaction, knee-jerk reaction against a tax raise, and think about what the alternatives are and to whom this is directed. I also would encourage people who reflect on this to think about the ripple effect. One of the things a few of us ran about was not all of us love the current configuration of Main Street. This could be something that could be dovetailed into the project. If we look at a large project and also look at the traffic impact and maybe make a Main Street configuration that's more satisfactory to the citizenry, we can knock out another bird with the same stone, possibly at no cost if we're smart about it. So that's something that can also be done. With reflect to what my questions were, like what do we do about people who are staying because of emergencies, domestic violence victims, for example, or fire victims, maybe their house burned down and they need a week to get back on their feet. That's part of the sideboard conversation that Mr. Card mentioned, and we can work on that. That wouldn't have to be part of this vote. The only caveat I had was in the West version, it says many things that this doesn't tax. And there could be voters in Medford that want to know, well, is this going to make it harder for people to get help in emergencies when they don't have the money to stay there and their house burned down and everything is gone? Maybe that could be another thing it doesn't apply to in the West version. Or we could just save it for sideboard. That was my only thinking process on that.
So the explanatory statement is limited to what the change to the charter does, not what changes to the municipal code are. And so we don't want to mention anything about what would be exempt, et cetera, or any sideboards in the explanatory statement, because that lives in the code and not the charter. And
I think it's fair to at least let people know who are listening that we're going to be reflecting on that as well.
Absolutely, and and I think that's important. I'm glad that dialogue is coming from the dais. The explanatory statement under state law has got to be limited to what is the mechanical effect of a yes vote and a no vote, and not what is the intent of the body that forwarded this. So a lot of those discussions in terms of intent, sideboards, et cetera, I'm statutorily prohibited from putting into the explanatory statement, but I'm really glad this discussion is happening.
But I would guess the takeaways are, it's a tax that we're not really paying to bring people in who are going to pay it and spend money on something that's going to be a 10-to-1 return on any public money we're going to put in. That doesn't seem hard, even to someone who does not like to spend money and hates taxes like I do.
And I don't disagree with any of that, but we're also not allowed to encourage a yes vote in the explanatory statement. And a lot of those points you make cross the line from explaining the mechanism to advocacy, and so don't disagree with anything you say, but I can't put that in the explanatory statement.
I understand.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Keating.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief. Much of what I have been thinking about this have been said by others, and I am also hesitant to raise taxes. However, this is a great thing to do. I think services being created are targeted to the people paying the tax and providing great benefit to the city of Medford, so I'll be voting for it as well.
Any other discussion or debate on this issue? May we have a roll call, please?
Kevin Stein,
Yes.
Nick Card,
Yes.
Kevin Keating,
Yes?
Garrett West,
Yes.
Zach Smith,
Yes.
John Quinn,
Yes.
Jessica Ayers,
Yes.
and Mike Curlinger.
Yes.
We have 8 yes.
Thank you. That item passes. Before we move on to public hearings, I want to make a motion and a brief comment. As I had said, the hoteliers have been a big part of this, and they raised a number of concerns as we went through this process. They have been willing to engage with us, and I have heard some of their concerns. I know Mr. Stein and others have been involved in some of these meetings, and so I think it's important for us to begin this process of actually drafting the language and the code that would enact this. A couple different things that I want to put into at this point. There are 2 specific items, or let's call it 3 specific items. There's a set of sideboards around sunsetting, around limiting the dollars for use on a conference center or sort of a similar facility, and I think we can talk to those issues. There's an issue about making the TLT increase some kind of a district-based idea. This is something that we really haven't had a chance to look into. I think this is an interesting concept, and I would like staff to run this to ground. And so in the spirit of saying, look, this 2%, which is what we're putting to the voters, we may not need all 2% of this for this project, and we may find more creative ways to use that 2% that are more targeted, again, to those properties that benefit the most from this kind of a project. And so I have a motion that kind of wraps all of these things together. So let me go ahead and read this out. I move to direct staff in 3 respects. First, to start drafting a resolution establishing a 1% increase in TLT, assuming the TLT measure passes in November, including a sunset provision and restrictions on the use of the TLT for a conference center or similar facility as part of the Creekside Quarter project or similar downtown development. Second, to start investigating the possibility of a district or other method of differential rates instead of charging all operators the same percentage. Third, to schedule a study session to report back to council on these matters. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Yes, Mr. West.
I definitely want to have a study session on this. It seems incredibly complex. I want staff to take a full view of all these things. I think it's very important for our community that we explore these things, and I know it's going to take some time, so I'm fully in favor of it.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn.
I agree with everything Mr. Card said. One thing I do want to look at is also whether emergency housing is going to be subject to the TLT. And the reason I say that is, for example, we have so many outstanding charitable organizations here that are on thin budgets. The last thing they need is to have something cost more when they're trying to help someone who's suffering from domestic violence or a house fire or some other thing. So I think we should reflect on whether emergency housing should be sideboarded as well. I know it's 1%, but you know, a trip of 1,000 miles starts with one step, and sometimes the step is too much. So let's think about that as well. It also, the elegance of this tax is it taxes the people who are coming from here. The last thing we want to do is also tax our already strapped and wonderful charitable organizations who are trying to help others locally.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Mr. Stein, I saw your hand go up.
I mean, that can be a discussion later. I just don't know about carve-outs. I mean, that just becomes a lot. I think there was a good point made about, you know, if a nonprofit's doing it, they got to go say, oh, this is a DV victim. I mean, that's a rough road to hoe. I spent some time in Oklahoma. What was the other part? Oh, so what's the timeline in these things? I mean, there's a lot of information seeking here. So are we looking
Eric,
like the fall?
What do you think? What do you think would be a realistic timeline to get back to us on this?
So in terms of some of the targeted sideboards that I know that the hoteliers are interested in, we could be ready to have a study session in August, in a few weeks. This is a priority project. It's moving quickly, and I understand there's folks in the business community who want to know what those sideboards are before they vote. I don't know that I'll have answers on everything, and certainly if the scope broadens and I'm looking at potential exemptions, which I'm not against looking at, I think some good points have been raised. I don't think those would be ready by mid-August, but we could, you know, if that's wrapped in as part of the work, no objection from me here. But at least in terms of stuff that's really targeted at some of the hotelier concerns about this, I could be ready to present second week in August. And that way, if we decide it's not ready to vote on, we need another 30 days, we could potentially have a second study session. I don't want to get to the dais with something this big and this complex and then be trying to fix it from the dais. So
Agreed,
I'm willing to shift stuff around, get this done, and have a study session in August.
All right. Okay. Mr. Koenig.
Yeah, I apologize. Can you give me a quick bullet point of what those three sideboards were?
Sunset provision, restrictions to conference center or similar facility as part of Creekside Quarter project or similar development.
And those two.
Those are the two that are in there.
Was there not a third?
Well, as 1% and then a district-based differential rate. So those are the other pieces.
Okay.
Depends on if you want to call them sideboards or not. More like
understood.
guidelines.
We are, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're already exploring potentially district-based funding options.
We're exploring district-based funding options, not district-based TLT tax increases.
So this is an intentional, it's not doubling up per se, but it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Differential rates instead of charging all operators the same percentage.
No, I understand that. I'm trying to make sure I have my
But that's
mind around
so,
the
and I think it's
proposal.
important. Like this is, to echo what Garrett said. I don't think we can have this full conversation from the dais. There's still more information we need from staff, and there's a lot of stuff that's going to go in here. You know, a good question somebody asked us, and this is like, what does conference center mean, or similar facility, or Creekside Quarter? You know, that's a really good question. We need to talk about that because this is not just hypothetical. This is code language we have to come up with, and so where the rubber meets the road is an important detailed conversation, because if we're going to do stuff like this is novel things that we've never really done in our TLT code before. I think it's perfectly reasonable. It's just, can we do it in a way that makes sense to us and is reasonable to us without overburdening the process? That's an important question, and we need to dive into those things, and I think your office is prepared to do that. Any other comments before? All right. Winnie, can we have a roll call, please?
Nick Card,
Yes.
Garrett West,
Yes.
Kevin Stein,
Yes.
John Quinn,
Yes.
Zach Smith,
Yes.
Jessica Ayers,
Yes.
Mike Kurlinger,
Yes.
and Kevin Keating.
Yes.
We have 8 yes.
Thank you. That motion passes. Item 90, public hearings. Looks like we have one public hearing tonight. Before beginning the public hearings, I'd like to remind everyone that the rules of decorum previously outlined are still applicable. Violations of the decorum policy may result in your removal from the chambers. We have one administrative hearing. If you'd like to speak during this hearing, please complete a blue public comment form to be called forward. Comments for administrative or legislative hearings are limited to 4 minutes per individual, group, or organization. Agenda item 90.1, Mr. Mitten.
Thank you, Mr. President. 90.1 is Council Bill 2025-67, a resolution approving an update to the City of Medford's 2025 fee schedule to increase land use fees, building permit review fees, road credit union community complex, event center fees, and paperless statement utility billing fees.
Thank you very much. May we have a staff report, please?
Good evening, Council. Ryan Martin, Chief Financial Officer. Tonight I'll be presenting the update to the master fee schedule. Just as a summary, as Mr. Mitten pointed out, this is covering planning fees, Rogue X fees, and a paper statement fee. As you probably recall, through many, many meetings, we have talked about this at the Budget Stabilization Committee level, the Budget Committee, which forwarded a favorable recommendation, and then also council briefings. Talking about planning fees, we have changed our methodology of cost recovery over the years. So back in about 2018, when I was a rookie here and Councilmember Stein was already a grizzled veteran at that point.
All-star.
All-star as well. The cost recovery for the overall planning department was about 7%. So during that budget cycle, or the 2019 to 21 budget cycle, the Budget Committee recommended and Council approved to increase planning fees to 20%. We've changed the methodology that we're looking at to attempt to recover 100% of current planning rather than long-range planning, because those are the tasks that involve a lot of building or plan reviews and a lot of the current rather than looking out into the future, as you probably understand by current long range. So looking at the proposed increases, first of all, we're looking at increasing the planning fees by 10% each year for 2 years. We're also looking to implement a fee of 1.5% of the project valuation, which is capped at a $500,000 valuation for commercial, industrial, and multifamily plan review. We're looking at, similar to other fees that we've implemented or changed over the last several years, is increasing those by the CPI each year to try to keep up with inflation. This gets us to about 77% cost recovery at the end of the biennium. Now, you'll probably notice this is different than the 100% cost recovery that we're targeting, and increasing the fees to get up to 100% cost recovery in 2 years was a pretty monumental task. This was a balance between trying to increase cost recovery to balance our budget and our general fund, and also conversations with the development community to increase fees at a level which were feasible to them, as well as get an extra planner to help expedite the review time for developers. So our building safety director, as he always magnificently does, reached out and had conversations with the interim Southern Oregon Builders Association president, as well as other developers, and proposed this, and they were supportive of it and looked forward to the continual good service that our planning department, building safety department provide. We're also planning on reviewing this again as part of the upcoming budget, which I'm trying not to think of in our year off right now, but we will be looking at it again to see what our cost recovery actually turned out to be, and then what if fees can be increased further to try to get to that 100% cost recovery. We're also looking at increasing certain Rogue X fees. Just kind of as a brief overview, in 2024, the first very close to full year of service for Rogue X, the operating expenses exceeded the revenues by about $900,000. So we're looking at increasing that cost recovery a bit as well. Also, the debt service is $3 million per year. That's outside of the operating expenses, and that's covered by fees and taxes that were put into place 5 years ago now. So the proposed changes will not generate a ton of revenue, but $80,000 as just kind of a starting place on some of the fees. We're not looking at any adjustments to swim lessons, monthly passes, or daily drop-in fees right now. And we are currently working on a business plan for Rogue X that will look at how we increase the cost recovery compared to other similar facilities throughout the nation as far as advertising and sponsorship revenues go, as well as just overall fees and our staffing load and the type of staffing that we have. So we're planning on having that done in 2025, which will be reported back to council. This is a table just showing some of the fee increases. You can see pretty minor ones, the birthday party room, which is just fantastic. Having twins and you can get 2 rooms side by side and have 50 people in there is pretty amazing. We were the first ones in there and learned a lot of things. For example, on brand new windows, sometimes people just don't know their windows and try to run through them. And that was my nephew. Anyways, moving on to the utility billing, paper statement fee. This is a proposed fee of $3 per month on a paper statement. Customers can elect to receive an electronic statement and incur no fee. This avoids paper bills, the utility insert, which in color, as you may have heard me say once or a million times before, costs quite a bit more than black and white, and also late notices. This will generate about $750,000 per year. If you have any recommendations on color of the insert that will go out to notify customers of this, just go ahead and let me know. We're taking votes right now. So that is it, Mr. President, and ready for a public hearing or any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Any questions for staff? Mr. Quinn.
All right, 2 things. Can we go back to the paperless billing? And I just wanted to have one question. People can still go ahead and print out their bills if they need them for their records, and that's free.
Correct.
Great. And then going back to the planning fees, one of the suggestions I had in the process was that we should have a floor, essentially de minimis, below a certain dollar amount, shouldn't be subject to the fees. And I think you've done or whoever calculated this did a very smart solution by excluding single family and dropping it down to 1.5, because my concern was, well, what if you want to add a deck? What if you want to add a patio? What if you want solar? Maybe it's 20,000, maybe it's 30,000. Do we really need to hit you with a fee? That's going to primarily be single family that is doing those small projects. So by cutting that out, that's a very elegant solution. I compliment you and or whoever thought of it. Question about what multifamily means. Would that include or not include ADUs? And would multifamily go down as low as like a duplex?
No, ADUs are not multifamily.
5+ units is multifamily.
There you go.
5+? Very good, thank you.
Answered.
One answer's done.
Mr. Martin?
Well, 2 is multi, so it wasn't a silly question.
True. I'm going to phone a friend and also use my 50/50.
The people's position is whatever.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Sam Barnum, Community Development Director. So this is going to be based on the way the building department puts in permits. So multifamily for us is anything above a duplex. So a triplex or above is multifamily, but not a duplex, not an ADU. Does that make
Super.
sense?
It does.
Okay.
So what you're saying is Councilor Ayers was wrong. Is that
You don't need to answer that question, Sam.
Don't do it, Sam.
That answers all my questions.
Mr. Kurlinger.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
Ryan, quick, I'd say cocktail napkin math, but it was really iPhone math. If we generated revenues of 1.4, operational expenses were 2.3, in excess of that, an extra 80 million gets us from about 60% cost recovery to 64%. Is that correct?
That sounds accurate, yes.
Cool. So is the intent, I mean, I suppose the stabilization committee will revisit this, but is the intent kind of this change based on what we've actually experienced now that we've been open for a little while? Ideally to say, okay, we've kind of made an adjustment and we think we're in a good spot? Or are we still a little bit lagging and we're going to be having this conversation again in a year? And would it be better to bite the bullet, make 10 and 12% increases to these right now, which feels a little more drastic, but then we're there. We know what it is. It doesn't feel like it's getting raised every single year.
Great question, and my recommendation would be to wait until we work through the business plan, because we'll look at operational expenditures as well. I mean, one of the big expenses that we've seen is the power bill, which is over $20,000 per month. So we're looking at other options. We've set aside matching funds for a potential solar grant. We've had Oregon Energy Trust in there to help develop solutions for saving energy. So there's a lot of things like that, but also I think importantly are the type of revenues that we increase. These ones are fairly low impact. They're in very high demand. As we start looking into the daily drop-in fees, swim lessons, things like that, those could bring in more revenue, but they also have a larger impact. So I think waiting probably over the next few months and reviewing this, as we'll review it with council, I think would be my recommendation.
Okay. And I commend you for the lessons, the passes, the drop-in fees, for trying not to touch those. I agree that would be a disproportionate impact on the people who are often least able to absorb that.
Mr. Stein.
Yeah, and you kind of went out at the end, like the increases for the parks for Rogue X are the one-time fees. So it's, unless you have, 12 birthday parties that you got to go pay for, it's not as big of impact as like a $5 fee and like another $3 fee to like something monthly. And then there was a bigger increase that we talked about at Parks and Rec about renting out the entire facility. I mean, that's what got the bigger jump, and that one might be one that has to probably go even higher, because if you can get the entire gym space, I mean, what's the realistic number that should be? And generally, if you can pay $3,000 something, I mean, the events that are happening there, like maybe that should be jumped a little bit higher, but that's something that they'll figure out when they do the big study on what's a better number to try to get better cost recovery.
Any other questions for staff? All righty, seeing no further questions, I will open the public hearing. At this point, anyone wishing to speak on this subject, please come forward as called. Please identify yourself for the record before speaking. Is Winnie, anyone? No? Anyone present tonight that did not complete a public comment form but would now like to speak? Oh, come on, Rich, don't be shy. All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion before we go to a motion? Do I hear a motion? Mr. Stein.
I move to approve Council Bill 2025, Tax 67.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any discussion? Jessica.
I just want to say that, being on the stabilization committee with you,
Such a good time.
we put a lot of work into this. There was a lot of thought put into how to make departments more self-sufficient and balance the budget without basically taxing the entire community for things like development and stuff like that. So none of this was done lightly. I mean, nobody likes to raise fees, but I feel like we did it in the best manner that we possibly could have.
Any other discussion?
I wanted to address the planning fees. I pay them daily as part of my job on behalf of many of the developers in the community. And I think it's important to understand that it's not the cost of fees that kill projects or that kill housing, it's the time. The amount of times I have wished I could pay double or triple a fee just to get a planning decision through within like 6 months, that would be amazing. I'm not talking about Medford, I'm talking about other jurisdictions. So
To be clear,
because I love our planning staff. But it's important that we have the resources available in our planning department so that they can do their job, so that we can keep our economy moving. The one comment I want to make sure that council is aware of is that if and when we have an economic downturn, there's a tendency in local governments to start slashing jobs in planning departments, which makes us unable to get our economy back up and running quickly when projects start getting applied for. After the Great Recession, many of our local planning departments had very few people. We could not pump out enough approvals and applications, and our economy could not grow faster. So that's just something we need to keep in mind as the years go forward. So I fully support this.
Mr. Krillinger.
I think paying double to expedite it is called a bribe, just so you know.
Well, there are jurisdictions where I can pay double and there is no expedition.
I wanted to comment on the planning fees too. I was just curious how the development community may have reacted, and based on the feedback I got when I asked the question, we've had conversations with BASO and some other developers, and they're actually very much in support of this to ensure our planning department is fully staffed and can make quick decisions. And I do think it's just responsible for us to say, how can we make this department self-sufficient? So it feels like a win all around. Our department is more stable and self-sufficient, and our developers are happy that their projects continue to clip along at a reasonable pace.
Any other? Mr. Quinn.
And we're not making it self-sufficient by increasing the monthly utility fee. We're targeting it to the people who use the service. And that's important, and that's something we touched on in the TLT conversation as well.
I think that's what the self word means in self-sufficient. Any other discussion? All righty. No other discussion. Winnie, may we have a motion? Sorry, a roll call. Jeez.
Kevin Stein,
Yes.
Garrett West,
Yes.
Zach Smith,
Yes.
John Quinn,
Yes.
Nick Card,
Yes.
Kevin Keating,
Yes.
Jessica Ayers,
Yes.
and Mike Kurlinger.
Yes.
We have 8 yes.
Thank you very much. That item passes. We have a second item 90? Is this item 100? This is 100. Council business, 100.1. Mayor Zarazinski issued 2 proclamations for tonight's meeting, acknowledging Parks and Rec, Professionals Day, and Smart Irrigation Month. I will now read these into the record. Proclamation. Whereas the Parks and Recreation field is a diverse and comprehensive system that improves personal, social, environmental, and economic health, and whereas the City of Medford recognizes the importance and benefits of parks and recreation services that enrich the lives of its citizens and help make this community a desirable place to live, work, and visit, and whereas the City of Medford supports the skilled work of parks and recreation professionals to strengthen community cohesion and resiliency, connect people with nature and each other, and provide and promote opportunities for healthful living, social equity, and environmental sustainability, and whereas the City of Medford values the essential services that parks and recreation professionals and volunteers perform to provide recreational and developmental enrichment for our children, youths, adults, and older adults, and to ensure our parks and recreational spaces are clean, safe, inclusive, welcoming, and ready to use. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Michael Zarazinski, Mayor of Medford, do hereby proclaim July 18th, 2025 as Parks and Recreation Professionals Day in the City of Medford and encourage all citizens to join us in this commemoration.
Mike, I didn't know you had a beard.
I know. It's got a lot more attractive today, that's all. Proclamation. Whereas the City of Medford recognizes water. I'm just reading the proclamation as they are, to be clear. Proclamation. Whereas the City of Medford recognizes water as a finite resource that is vital to human life. See, Brad didn't even stick around for this one. Whereas well-maintained green spaces are important to the health and well-being of all communities and individuals. And whereas abundant supplies of affordable food and fiber raise the standard of living for all citizens. And whereas appropriate irrigation technology combined with the best practices can significantly reduce water usage and runoff while creating healthy lawns, landscaping, and sports turfs. And whereas July is a peak month for the use of water for irrigation, and whereas appropriate irrigation technology combined with best practices can significantly improve water use efficiency and runoff while achieving greater agricultural yields per acre foot of water used, and whereas the Medford Water Commission offers assistance and incentives to residents looking to conserve water, including a smart controller rebate, free sprinkler evaluations, resources, recommendations, and other outdoor water efficiency tips. Now, therefore, I, Michael Zarazinski, Mayor of the City of Medford, do hereby proclaim July 2025 as Smart Irrigation Month in the City of Medford and urge all citizens to join us in this observance. Item 100.2, committee reports and communications. We did not have a council officers meeting today. Any committee reports? Mr. West.
I attended the Medford Water Commission meeting this afternoon, and there were three items of importance. Number one, the South Stage construction issue with all the piping they were adding has been completed. So the road is back open as far as I'm aware. Number two, they updated a contract with pre-designing for two of our reservoirs, one of which was Capitol Hill Reservoir. And the third, they approved a contract to upgrade and repave portions of the Willow Lake Reservoir spillway. The spillway was many, many decades out of date and had some crumbling concrete. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? Awesome. Moving on to item 110, staff reports. Any staff reports, Mr. Field?
No.
That brings us to item 120, adjournment. Mr. Stein.
So there was one item that we talked about last week for the CCIF that has more of a timing than the other issues, and that is the hospital,
Yeah.
the OHSU partnership. So I would like to make a motion. I move that we immediately move $100,000 from CCIF for that project.
Do we hear a second? Second from Mr. Quinn. Any discussion on the motion?
I just want to, it's just very important that we are moving forward on this. It did not appear that anyone had any negative parts about this, and it's a good thing to just keep going on that while the iron's hot.
I agree with that. Any other discussion? Awesome. Oh, Mr. Curlier.
So it's my first round. Be gentle. Is this an appropriate use of the CCIF funds if they're normally going towards a community initiative and we are retaining them for something directly revolved to like city development? Does that feel appropriate to the council who's been involved in these
It feels
decisions in the
appropriate to
past?
me. These are funds that we use to support all sorts of different kinds of community things, and bringing a medical school to Medford would be a huge community benefit. One of the things we heard is from SOAP and the challenge of finding good physicians. Having a medical school means people who go to school here will likely stay here. That's a big draw to keeping physicians in the community. So I think as long as there's a community nexus, but I think as Kevin would say, it's our money. We get to do with this money whatever we want to do with it. So
I want to add
Mr.
things
Stein,
that
it's your
we.
motion. Go ahead.
Sorry, I want to add things that we've done in the past that are very similar. Right. So we put the convention center study came out of this money. We had we did a master planning of our fire department that led to the increase of like the EMS teams and more firefighters. So there is a fair amount of times where it's money that's not really readily available in the general fund budget that could be these types of studies that are council priorities.
Yes,
That
Ms.
is
Harris.
helpful.
I think one of the takeaways is just that as long as it aligns with council goals, which I think we can make a case that this does, then it is an appropriate use of the funds.
Any other comments? We'll just do this one by acclamation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That item passes. We have allocated, Mr. Martin, we have fewer funds. The countdown begins. Anything else for the good of the order? We are adjourned. It is 7:28. We have a mirror meeting.
Good evening, Mr. Stein and members of the board. Harry Weiss with Mura. This is an action item bringing forward to you what we talked about in study session at our last meeting about going ahead and beginning the shrinking of the existing urban renewal district in anticipation of its ultimate termination and sunsetting. Because we are done with everything down in Southgate, which is shown in the pink area, and we have no additional projects planned down there, and because we're not collecting any more revenue, this is an easy appendectomy. That's what I was looking for. Appendectomy. We're going to go ahead and slice this out of the body of the Mura district. Conveniently, it had this very narrow spot where it connected up here at 10th Street, so it made rewriting the description a little bit easier. That's going to get harder as we move forward. So if there are any other questions that you might have, I think we covered this pretty much in study session last month.
Any questions? Seeing none. Mr. Card.
I move to approve Resolution 2025-003.
Seconded. Somebody.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Seeing no comments, Winnie, please call the roll.
Nick Card,
Yes.
Zach Smith,
Yes.
John Quinn,
Yes.
Kevin Stein,
Yes.
Garrett West,
Yes.
Jessica Ayers,
Yes.
Mike Kurlinger,
Yes.
and Kevin Keating.
Yes.
We have 8 yes.
Thank you. Mr. Mitten.
Thank you, Chair. Item 70.2 is Resolution 2025-004, a resolution authorizing and approving the termination of the option agreement and an agreement of purchase and sale between the Medford Urban Renewal Agency and Rubicon Edeland JV LLC concerning the property located at 711 through 801 North Central Avenue.
Thank you. Urban Renewal Project Specialist Harry Wise, you have the floor.
Thank you. So again, we talked about this in study session last month. As you know, the Dolores Huerta project has been withdrawn for funding this year under an amendment to our original disposition agreement with Rubicon Edeland. That gives the board the right to go ahead and terminate the option agreement and begin to explore other development scenarios for the site. It was the board's direction to go ahead and prepare a resolution to that effect. Requires that we give them written notice, so the approval and authorization of approval will be translated into a letter that we will remit to Rubicon Edeland, and that will terminate the option.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing no questions, motion. Mr. Card.
I move to approve Resolution 2025-004.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Nick Card,
Yes.
Mike Kurlinger,
Yes.
Jessica Ayers,
Yes.
Kevin Stein,
Yes.
John Quinn,
Yes.
Kevin Keating,
Yes.
Zach Smith,
Yes.
and Garrett West.
Yes.
We have 8 yes.
Thank you. Moving on to board business. All right, director and staff reports. Request for assistance for seismic modifications at 360 East Jackson Street.
Okay, this is also a follow-up on the study session from last month. I presented you with a couple of potential requests for funding consideration before the board from a variety of organizations in the community, including Living Waters Church. This evening, Jarek Murray and Andy Southmaid are here from Living Waters to make a short presentation about the project that they have been working on. They've been working on a renovation of this building over a period of time. So far, having spent, close to $1 million, they'll give you more of the details about how they're repositioning the property. And the final big lift here is for seismic retrofit in order to increase the capacity to 500 people under assembly occupancy. So I will invite Jarek and Andy to come down, and they have a short presentation. So you guys just...
Am I able to just?
You just hit the arrow button.
Okay, great.
One other thing, I put there is a letter from the church that we meant to send out to you on your iPads earlier this afternoon. Didn't get a chance to do that, so you have a hard copy in front of you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Hello, my name is Jarek Murray. I sit on the board of one of 8 for Living Waters, excuse me. It's a religious organization, not a car dealer. But my background is real estate development and finance. Done about $6 billion plus in everything development,
credit allocation, as well as sales and deal structuring. I primarily advise the board and Living Waters organization on their capital asset management. What we're looking to do here, as Mr. Weiss said, is our ask is roughly $350,000 to complete our seismic retrofitting. We're looking to do that more or less to increase the capacity and the utility of our 38,000 square foot facility. This is not for the congregation. We use roughly 7,000 square feet 1 day a week, but we've got inbound many requests from the community for a variety of uses that you can see here: childcare, a work from home hub, a breakout meeting space, as well as supply and resource shelter for the community. And we would like to more or less structure a deal, and we're in that process now, to be able to use that extra 30,000 square feet or so as a benefit for the community. We have a track record of doing that in the past. Our previous location, roughly 6 acres off of Roberts Road here in Medford, we strategically and intentionally sold that to a workforce housing, affordable housing developer. We've also done the same with an asset in Ashland. And with this opportunity, we do, though we own the property outright, fee simple currently, and we've put just about $1 million into it in a variety of ways, which we'll go through that shortly. We are looking to restructure this asset to make it attractive, obviously, to a handful of investors, business owners, and operators, so the highest and best use of this property can be realized. So the progress we've made, I'm not sure how many of you all are familiar with this facility. It's pretty easy to spot off East Jackson, but the before and after here, we've done some paint work. We've also started to stitch up the parking lot. The roof was in very tough shape, and that's where the majority of our funds actually went to initially. We've repaired that. That is definitely up to code, and we have another 20 years on that. Our previous, or the previous space here was more or less what we call our 360 room. Children use this, etc. The building, or this picture on the left, clearly isn't favorable for child's play. We've improved that, as you can see. And then our primary meeting space, this accounts for roughly 6,500 square feet of that, roughly 7,000 that we utilize 1 day a week, was cargo bays. We have, put a lot of money into that, including HVAC, flooring, etc., to make that habitable and hospitable for our constituents. And this is just more images of the child room. So we have a history, again, engaging in the community in a variety of ways. I won't kind of reiterate our past projects, but our hope is, again, to reduce our interest in that property, making sure that our primary goal is running a church. That's all we want to do, but make sure that the balance of that space is utilized properly. You all remember the Phoenix fires, obviously a terrible event. During that time, we were able to utilize that space to be a resource center, as the picture illustrates, to support the valley and all those impacted. So, just some high-level renderings. I'm not going to bore you with a whole bunch of plans, but we've largely accomplished this goal. But we're looking to improve, obviously, the windows, some of the egress spaces there, and as it relates to the lobby area, really build that out so that other businesses, again, community members and organizations can have really their own separate spaces, and the church can have theirs. So this is just more kind of high-level conceptual renderings. We can advance these once we're able to get that the seismic work done. As you can imagine, speaking to investors and knowing that the property isn't in full compliance as it relates to the seismic upgrades is largely a non-starter. So we're looking to address that so we can move forward and continue supporting the community as we have.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Quinn.
Thank you for what you're doing. I just have a couple questions. One, have you been exploring other grant opportunities, and how's that going? That's the first one.
Oh, okay, yeah. You can rattle them off if you
Oh,
like.
the other one is, what are your thoughts about a blend of grant/loan/potentially forgivable loan?
Yeah, so this is obviously kind of not our first step at bat, but this is our primary approach, given it has been, we bought the property in 2018, COVID was hard on everybody, but specifically on religious organizations. So we've been really counting our pennies and putting it towards here as necessary. That being said, we're 100% not opposed to looking at other funding sources. And layering that in, again, my background is all about finding nuanced funding and making it work, largely for community good. So that's definitely a path we're willing to pursue.
If you have set would-be users, are they going to be in a position to contribute towards it as well, or do you have anyone set that could?
Yeah, so set is as you guys know with some of the previous conversations, is an interesting term. We have engaged with a variety of different, again, operators, community groups, and businesses, some that are looking for second locations from other municipalities in the valley that are very much interested, but ultimately they don't want to own or manage real estate. We get it. Where the linchpin is obviously overcoming this hurdle, so we can then engage with some of our investor opportunities that we've kind of dovetailed with. But the seismic thing is largely a non-starter today, but we are lining up potential occupants for a completed project.
So you need to get yourself into a position so you could have a revenue stream to pay back perhaps a partially forgivable loan.
Yeah. So that's a very different conversation that, depending on how this advances, we'd love to discuss. But we own the property outright, several sites, debt-free. There are a variety of structures that we can use that allow us to not only pay that money back, but maintain our space, but limit our responsibilities to that space. So it's less about us getting tenants to pay back, but through that divestment opportunity or that structure, we would have proceeds to allocate towards any existing debt.
Councilor Ayers.
So do you have an idea of, when it comes to the square footage of the whole building, what portion could potentially be occupied by tenants? And are we talking about like longer term tenants, or are we talking about transient tenants?
Yeah.
And then to kind of piggyback on that, what portion of the space do you think would ultimately be used for the community and not just tenants?
Yeah. So tenants, again, to make it very concise, we don't have a lot of just kind of master lease tenants that aren't like big box here. That being said, we do have operators that run shared office space. That would effectively be one tenant, though it would be utilized by a variety of actors, if you will. Childcare is a massive need. Us being strategically located down there, largely already having space allocated for children. Many times there are operators that struggle to find appropriate space, right? So that, is kind of a secondary check mark. And then obviously with the large cargo bays and or warehouse facilities, there are a bunch of different uses. Our primary use we see as, additional storage, drop shipping, et cetera, for other, entrepreneurs within the market. That's all to say that the building is 38,000 square feet in total. We use just over 7,000 square feet. The balance of that space, there's some, vertical penetrations and corridors there, but I would assume, without looking at the architecturals, roughly 80% of that can be utilized, again, outside of bathrooms, vertical penetrations, and corridors.
Quick follow-up. You probably already know this, but have you looked into any of the Business Oregon childcare programs?
So not as of yet. We understand that there's a bunch of different compliance pieces there. What we really want to do is, frankly, get a would-be landlord or partner on the hook, which there are some contenders. And then from there, begin to go through that vetting process alongside them to select the proper mix, right? That's the high-level approach.
Any other questions? I do see, you have a 30-day estimate that you gave us of that $350-ish thousand. So is your timing just as soon as possible?
Yeah, always. Time kills all deals.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Card.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe Harry, you can answer this question. As I think about other projects that we've done with Mira, I know we've given money to nonprofit to organizations or in general organizations that are not paying property tax. And so, but a lot of that I feel like has been for things like blight reduction. And in this case, doing seismic reduction on a piece of property that this doesn't benefit the property tax rolls because it's a nonprofit. I'm a little concerned about that process because the overarching goal of Mira is to help us raise property tax revenues overall, and investing in a project that there is no property taxes on feels a little counterpoint. However, maybe that is something that we've done more typically in Mira than I realize.
Well, let me frame it up this way. Our engagement and support of non-tax-paying entities that own non-assessable property downtown is really, really substantial. And if you look at the success of downtown, it depends upon the various sectors that support that. There's housing, there's retail, there's office, there's civic and institutional anchors, all of which contribute to the vitality and the functioning of downtown. So in that respect, there are two big projects. Typically, we've been doing kind of the land side of the deal. Jackson County Library, HEC. Those are both Mura leverage projects. RVTD bus station, Mura leverage project. So we have many examples of investments that we have made in non-tax producing entities that contribute to the downtown spectrum of uses and life. And I think in this case, the idea that we have a church that has an urban ministry that is positioning a real estate asset to provide critical services such as childcare, which would be of enormous benefit to downtown employees who are working in offices and retail to have on-site, downtown childcare. Similarly, we've put some money, of course, into the Children's Museum of Southern Oregon, right? And they provide a bunch of services that draw people and support the downtown community. So I think when we do the calculus about does it need to be a direct tax return in the form of property taxes? No, I don't, because that's not really the nature of how downtowns work into their mix. In fact, I had Chris Olivier, the GIS specialist in the planning department, do a map a couple of years ago showing how much of downtown is non-accessible. It's almost 67% of all the land area of parcels in downtown is non-accessible. It's a shocking map when you actually look at it. And that's everything from this building to, the legal aid office and anything else that's on the Brit Festival building, which was owned by a nonprofit. So downtown is kind of it's a unique environment where we have that cluster and concentration of nonprofit entities that provide critical public services and social services to the community at large. And this is where our zoning allows them all to occur, because otherwise they're actually often restricted from being in other parts of the city. Downtown is where everybody gets to do everything. That's why it's an incredible challenge to navigate among the conflicts and between different user groups and property needs.
Well, I think if I may follow up on that, is that like with the HEC or the library, it's not like we were just doing internal projects for those. We were helping build buildings that erased significant blight. And I think, so I mean, like, if this was just, we were talking about facade improvements for an exterior space that was a significantly blighted or damaged thing, I wouldn't have a whole lot of heartburn about that, because I feel like that's clearly part of the overall aesthetics of that area. It's just, this being an internal project, I understand the need for it, but that was hence the sort of origin of my question.
Okay, well, I think in the case of Living Waters Church, we have an example. You know, this was the old Lithia headquarters building, right? So that is a building that is a challenging adaptive rehabilitation problem. And this organization has shown that they have a track record and the ability to reposition the property. So they started working on, certainly wasn't a blighted property in the more classic sense of, you know, fallen down and something we should tear down, but it was a difficult real estate asset to reposition. And I think it's very interesting the way they're approaching this divestment of their ownership of it in order to leverage greater community use of this asset. And in that respect, it's about a long-range transition of a underutilized or disused asset and turning it back into productive use in downtown, although it may not be productive from a tax standpoint. Of course, if depending on how this divestment occurs, it may become accessible.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Kerlinger. Well, I have a couple comments, but first, to respond to your comment, Nick, I think I understand your point of using funds to reduce blight in some areas. I would loosely argue part of the reason we're not addressing a blighted building is because of the work Living Waters has done prior to now. You're right, Harry. It wasn't falling down, but it certainly wasn't pretty.
Right.
So I want to make a couple of comments. One of my comments was about relieving blight and making things more functional downtown. I think Living Waters Church has done a good job of that. I had a couple of notes, which they had already commented on in this letter I hadn't seen. Emergency fire relief shelter. They want to be a code-compliant emergency shelter should the city have a need again in the future. We've talked about warehouse usage. We've talked about a lot of things that directly benefit the city and operate in partnership with the city. And I will say from personal experience, the leadership, I've been a part of church projects in the past that are working on a building that, for lack of a better term, felt icky to me. Felt like we were raising a lot of money to build something that was big and fancy instead of helping the community. The leadership of Living Waters does not have that heart. They have intentionally positioned themselves in the heart of downtown Medford to engage it, to be a place of help and hope, and to partner really, really well with the city in every way possible. I fully understand the potential concern with the optics of supporting a religious organization that can be very muddy waters to step into. I will say this is one of those situations where personally I feel there can be an exception made because there's such tangible benefit the city has already realized from the use of this building. I'm speaking fairly strongly about how I feel about it, and I'll follow that up by saying I know the leadership at Living Waters because I've been attending Living Waters since 1999. So I want to provide my insight into the church and into the heart and into the leadership, and then I'm going to abstain from any voting on how to use this money because of a potential perceived conflict of interest.
Mr. Keating.
I was going to ask something similar, basically to you, Harry, if I can. Is there precedent for us supporting a religious organization in this way? Supporting a building owned by a religious organization? For Sacred Heart Church, if they came to us, would we have no problem?
Not in my tenure at Mira. I don't know about in the past.
Okay. Thank you.
If I can make one other comment, the other framework I would offer for you to think about this, when we did the deal with the Elks Lodge, it was to get them over a hump to a better position for the long-term benefit of that property. I think the same rationale exists here with Living Waters, that they have done an incredible job of getting this property to where it is today. And the one big obstacle that remains is the seismic requirements to go to the next level of assembly occupancy. And the seismic program that we were initially envisioned in 2018 was very much about leveraging assembly function and residential on second floors, because those are big hurdles to have that kind of occupancy under the building code. So this is kind of like the tail end of the project to get them to the point that this property has greater marketability, but also greater utility in terms of the kind and breadth of and size of operations that it can house safely under the building code.
Mr. West. Oh, let's go to Mr. Minton first.
I just want to respond to Mr. Keating's question about religious organizations. Well, this may be newer territory for Mura. It's a bridge that the city, in terms of general fund grants, and has crossed a number of times before, and it gets very complicated when you're talking about supporting an operation. There's analysis. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, and largely it deals with who they serve, not who the organization's leaders are. Here we're talking about a physical structure, and we're talking about improvements to a physical structure that will still be there even if they partially or fully divest from the building. And so I think it's a much simpler analysis here, and long story short, I don't have a lot of heartburn about this.
Mr. West.
A question for Mr. Wise. Can you re-summarize the seismic program that we established a few years ago? And then have we done any upgrades to any other buildings in the Mira district related to seismic?
Okay, so as part of the substantial amendment that extended Mura in 2018, the board allocated 10% of the TIF resources to be used for seismic retrofit of downtown buildings. And that was the general intent of that pot of money. We found that it was very difficult to spend that money, or as I like to say, difficult to spend it wisely. The only applicant for money for seismic retrofit actually was the Elks Lodge when they first started working on that project. That building was already an assembly function, so it was grandfathered as an assembly occupancy already in the building code. They were not required to do any seismic, but we granted money to them to do an engineering study because they were going to do a massive amount of work. And they said, as long as we got everything opened up, if we can do some seismic retrofit to extend the life of this investment, we'll be happy to do that if it's cost effective. They did about a $25,000 assessment of it, and to fully retrofit that building was going to cost $1.2 million, just the seismic, which was the entire fund that the board had set aside for the program. We're like going, well, that ain't working, So, and they didn't have to do it either. I have been approached from time to time by people thinking about doing a second floor residential conversion. The music store down by near Four Daughters, they have a plan to put 3 units up there. They've asked about potential seismic because they have minor seismic retrofit stuff. Similarly, the old Palace Hotel, which is where the Mexican restaurant on Central Avenue, catty corner from RCC, that whole thing has been empty for 50 years. They have serious seismic retrofit to turn that to residential. But nobody's been able to do it. That's one of the reasons why we expanded that program to say, if people can't make use of seismic, we can sure help them with sprinkler systems. And we have done 7 sprinkler grants to leverage new sprinkler systems in buildings. So that proved a much easier uptake for renovation, where renovation could be assisted.
I'll just add, if I recall correctly, there was also a change in our code related to seismic, which made it where a lot of buildings were no longer had to do seismic because we changed the number of people that had to be there to trigger the seismic, which kind of eliminated a lot of buildings in the first place. So then it has to kind of be a bigger building with a lot more people in it to even get there. So that might be another reason why we are where we are.
Yeah, surprisingly, the building code has become more favorable.
Yeah.
Which has never happened in my lifetime.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Curlinger.
Of the funds originally set aside for this purpose, do we still have funds that have been unutilized?
We still have money available to do this. It's all in the unallocated capital resources. The earmark was 10%. one,
Have we hit that 10% benchmark?
To clarify, it was up to 10%.
up to 10%.
Up to
So it's
10%.
discretionary, it's all discretionary at the board's pleasure.
No, I understand it was up to and it was discretionary, but have we spent that 10% of the
Oh,
overall
no,
budget yet?
we're
Okay.
nowhere near that, yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Quinn.
How much do we have left, Harry, of the roughly 10%?
Well, if you want to measure it against the original 10%, which was 1.9 million, I think altogether on the sprinkler and the little bit of seismic that we did, we're probably only at about $350,000, $400,000 of outflow. So from an allocation standpoint, of course, that allocation is subject to whatever readjustment you all choose to make with the capital funds. So we haven't spent a quarter of what was anticipated that we might want to have available.
So do you have more?
Yeah, I just want to, what are your thoughts about whether a blend of grant and loan, or perhaps loan with a forgivable portion, would be sensible? And also whether we exercise some kind of earmarking as to how it would be used. Like I keyed in immediately on the best use, childcare. We drastically need childcare so people can get back to work. That'd be a wonderful thing to have downtown.
I would caution against interjecting the board's ideas about how the ownership should consider the use of their property, especially as they're approaching this divestment opportunity. That's really a negotiation between the property owner and a potential investor. And I think it would be, I think we understand how the property has been used and how it continues to be used. I think in reality, the seismic needs stand alone as meritable, and that this positions the, just like a sprinkler system puts the fire department in the building, that protects it for the next 75 years and makes it easy to adapt going forward. Doing this seismic retrofit will ensure that this property is more readily adaptable and it can evolve to meet downtown needs over a very long period of time. So we're really investing in the sustainability and viability of a resource long into the future, not so much about what its specific use is.
So would you say that we could do a blend of grant and loan with the understanding that once it's divested and money is received back by the church for the divestiture, we could participate in
Sure.
that
I mean,
to recapture some
we
of
did
it?
that with the Elks Lodge. I mean, the difference being Elks Lodge was a commercial endeavor. So, you know, if this were to become a commercial investment property, I think that the idea of a blend of grant and loan, portion of it is grant to the benefit of the current ownership. If it converts to a commercial building, it may be appropriate that that be recognized in the disposition of the property as, you know, something that needs to be paid back. Or if the church chooses to hold on to it for a long time, maybe that balance of loan gets forgiven, similar to how we've structured the Elks Lodge.
Go ahead, Mr. Minton.
The only challenge I would raise with a loan, particularly for looking several years out, is we are looking at winding down Mira 1.0 and owing money to entity that's fully spun down, putting money back into it, and then figuring out how to spin it back up to deal with that money and spin it back down is a procedural challenge. So I just want to put that out there.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like that'd be something that'd be written in, like it would just say it goes to Mura or the city of Medford.
Right, City of Medford is our heir if Mura goes out of business.
Right.
And the agency may live longer than the district. So that, you know, we got Mura 2.0. It's still the same Mura, and assets it carries forward would still be in their portfolio.
So my comment on the situation. So I have no issues about content of what's happening there. That I have no issue at all with that. I think that is a fair point about Mura and property taxes and like kind of increase. It's a fair point about blight. I think Mr. Curlinger makes a fair point about the investments there prevented, you know, may very well have prevented blight from that. My main thought is with a very large project occurring in the Mura district, especially on Riverside and Hawthorne Park, that is where my initial thoughts go. Because if we're going to take Mira money and put a significant amount towards that, we might need lots of dollars available for that. So that's just my thought. That's regardless. I mean, we might. Mr. Card brought up, maybe the Historical Society has, funding for their project from Mira. I mean, that would be something that would be adequate for them to do. Maybe that's a loan program, I think, which Mr. Card asked them last week. I think those are all fair discussions to have as we move forward. So I don't really know the right answer, but that's just kind of what's going in my head. If 350 or 450, like whatever number goes out, maybe that makes it a little bit harder to make up on the other end, as Mira can work with the city of Medford in terms of getting significant investment in what's remaining now, the last half of Mira. Mr. Keating.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of helping out this business for the reasons that have already been stated. I really like the idea of giving them the money and maybe putting a lien down on the building itself so we could actually recoup that in the future, some sort of a 0% loan or 0.1%. I think I'd prefer that to just outright grant of $350,000. And Mr. Stein makes a pretty good point that I wasn't really considering other uses for this money down the road. So I'm questioning how I'm going to vote on this, actually.
So if I will, just kind of clear on the air here. I do like what Mr. Keating says. Maybe it's similar to what we've done before. Now we have something to build off of. What is the thought about maybe fully funding, but coming up with some negotiation of receiving all of it or a portion of it? Having Harry enter a negotiation and bringing that back to us. Is that acceptable to the board? I'm seeing lots of head nods. Is there any opposition or other comments?
Can you clarify what you mean about receiving some of it or all of it, like recouping it?
Yes.
Or doing a partial funding of the request?
No. Full funding of the request. And then the question would be, do we actually want the full 350 back, or do we give a certain percent? Maybe we give them 100. I mean, I'm just throwing numbers out. Maybe we give 100 with 250 that's paid over the course of whatever amount of time that could be under acceptable terms.
So if I can interject here, I'm a little anxious about crafting a grant agreement on the dais.
We're not making full
for me. So
I'm not making full. I'm throwing out ideas and not saying we want Harry to come up with this specific thing.
What I'm asking you is, if we can narrow the scope of direction that you want me to do, let me suggest a couple of avenues that may help you decide on a direction. Obviously, there's the option of just granting the entire request. That doesn't sound like something you all necessarily want to do. In recognition that we make a distinction between nonprofit organizations and commercial investment, what Mr. Keating said, you could do a portion of this as an outright grant, and you could do the remainder as a 0% loan due on sale when it transfers to a commercial entity. Rather than, if it transfers to another nonprofit, it could just probably sit there. But if it transferred to a commercial interest, then that would be a lien at closing that would get paid off. The point is that it doesn't put a burden on Living Waters to service debt, but it does protect the use of the public funds when it converts to commercial, that there is some recovery. So that's how the Housing Authority used to do its housing assistance. They would do a $25,000 rehab loan for low-income homeowners due on sale, because they didn't want to burden them with debt or debt service. So that would be one way to structure it. The other one would be some combination of a grant and an outright loan that may have some amount of forgiveness down the line, which is what we did with Elks Lodge.
No, lots of hands went up. Okay, who hasn't spoken in a while? Councilor Ayers.
Surprisingly, Jessica's been quiet.
Yeah.
What's that supposed to mean? So that was my big hang up was, we need to be really careful about funding investment. opportunities. And so I really do support, because how else do you break down, like, okay, we grant for the nonprofit function of this, or we charge for the commercial function of it. So it actually does make a lot of sense to just put a lien on where if it does sell, then we do get that money back. And if it continues to be used for the community, then it becomes a grant. So I think that's a really easy way of looking at this.
Okay.
So what's funny is, to me, this is the exact opposite of what I want. Because if it goes into a commercial space, it becomes taxable, and that easily meets the value of Mira, because we've now created a commercial space that pays property taxes, and we've raised the value of property, and so therefore justifying the investments of Mira. If it remains a nonprofit space, that's where it has less value to Mira and its mission of raising property tax values.
Can I address that for a second, Mr. Clark?
Yeah.
I often make this point, and it's a nuanced point about urban renewal. If you read Chapter 457, the Urban Renewal Statute, urban renewal exists to prevent the decline of property values. That's its statutory purpose. Its statutory purpose is not to increase property values. Our funding mechanism is based on increment and property tax growth. But the purpose of urban renewal is to stop and to preserve property values and prevent their decline. So that's a nuance that often gets lost in the conversation about all of Mira's, a benchmark of Mira's investment should be the increase of property taxes. I don't subscribe to that 100%. It is an important benchmark, but there's more to the story than that in terms of being able to help properties just stabilize and prevent their further decline, just as for what it's worth.
Mr. Card, do you have more on that?
No, not really.
Okay, we need to wrap this up. What do we want to do?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I'm not wrapping it up. Understanding that the grants and the intended purpose of this 10% and all of that is completely discretionary, but we indicated some intent. We started with seismic retrofitting, didn't have enough of a need, switched to some sprinkler systems. Of anyone who's requested those funds for their intended purpose, how many of them have we structured as a forgivable or repayable loan?
The seismic and
the seismic and the
sprinkler,
sprinklers.
it's all grants.
So we have never,
100%
for the
grants.
purpose of these discretionary funds, requested any recipients pay them back.
No, they do not pay it. It's an outright grant. The sprinkler system, we will fund half of the cost of a sprinkler system up to $50,000, provided that they are undertaking comprehensive rehabilitation of their building. It has to be tied to a substantial adaptive rehabilitation or investment in the property. In this case, we're coming in on the tail end of the investment. If we had done this 8 years ago, this would have been on the front end of their additional $1 million investment. We didn't do it at that time. We bought their parking lot, and they used some of the proceeds of that sale to put into the renovation of the building. So we're kind of on the back end of this deal, again, getting them over the final hump to a higher assembly occupancy.
I'm going to put you guys on the spot. You might not have an answer. Do you have any concept of what kind of a gap you might be able to make up if we can't do the full 350?
Are you asking about other sources of funding? Or?
Yeah, other sources, or, I mean, I think I probably know the answer because I go to the church, but
Yeah, sure.
if you get 250, is it like, well, cool, we still can't do it?
Yeah, just, again, it's the TCAD acronym, time kills all deals. We just have to stretch out. I mean, obviously, the per square foot cost, explosion over the past 5 years wasn't in anybody's favor. We thought we had all the money. We did what we could. We've advanced it to, as Mr. Weiss has said, we've put $1 million into it. When we were going through this, getting the bids, that was more than enough. Obviously, as I said, there's been a crescendo in pricing. So going to the congregation is definitely an option. Looking at other grant opportunities, sure. But if I may, we are in this unique time right now where moving while people still feel confident about the market, people still have businesses. Who knows what that's going to be in 12 months is really critical for us. So we're just trying to get it done so we can get contracts in place, move, execute on this opportunity that's before us. So we're going to figure it out, but I'd rather solve it sooner than later.
Mr. Keating.
This question, I guess, procedurally, do we already have a motion on the?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I think we could get a commitment to, or direct staff to negotiate for a 0% loan or a lien on the property. They'd have the money relatively quickly, and then we could either decide to have that increase with the cost of inflation, CPI or something. Skip that. No,
I would just say,
just
if we're going to
keep
do
the-
something, just make it flat, 0%. And then the question is, do you want a lien or a loan? Those are two very different things. Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
I like Jessica's idea where it's a lien. I'm comfortable with that.
All right, can I get a straw poll on a lien? Okay, let's do a motion.
If I may ask, I need clarification.
Harry's got to jump in again.
Okay, when you say lien, are you talking the totality of what we would support this project would be secured against the property as a lien on a future sale, or is a portion of this an outright grant? I've purposely not made a staff recommendation on this because I don't know how you would like to do it. I'm prepared to make a staff recommendation if you like, but
Yeah.
my staff recommendation would be do a grant, partial grant, the remainder is 0% loan, due on sale to a commercial buyer. Because that gives them the benefit of zero debt money and positions the property. It does encumber their ability to sell the property because somebody's taking it subject to a lien that has to be paid off. But that's how I would approach it. And the question is, how much is the grant and how much is the lien?
Does anyone want to take that as their motion? Apparently not. Okay, Mr. Card.
So I don't understand why we are focused on the lien. I mean, like, unless we really think that there's going to be a commercial transaction in the immediate future and we're going to get this money back to be able to do something with it, this money will be coming back to us years, if not decades after this happens. And what good is $350,000 destroyed by that much inflation? Like, it'll end up in the city's coffers and it'll just go into the general fund. It'll be some weird footnote. Like, at that point, we might as well just give them all the money.
Okay, Mr. Curlinger.
Much of what we've discussed with Mura and the Creekside Corridor and many other developments and improvements in Medford, we've directly addressed it's going to be years and or decades before we fully realize the full benefit of them. So I understand what you're saying, but Mura is not a business. We're trying to improve the downtown area and we're trying to prevent the decline of a neighborhood. And they've already proven to be a very strong partner in accomplishing that. So I think we are getting an immediate return by continuing a strong partnership.
I'm not saying we're not getting an immediate return on the money. I'm saying if the goal of the lien is to get the money back, what's the point of getting the money back at an indeterminate time that may do no good for Mura or any of the other projects that we might potentially use this money for? So that to me just doesn't make sense. It's like, I mean, the loan, I get the loan because then we have a definite repayment period. A lien is just as useless to me.
Mr. Keating.
Well, let's say the church were to, God forbid, go out of business or to sell its product, we would get the money back. They would not, receive a windfall from that. And the money, why would we ever not want $350,000 as a city? I mean, I don't think it's anything to sneer at necessarily. And it seems like we're accomplishing their goals by giving them the money immediately to spend on the necessary purpose, and yet holding on to our city's interests as well.
All right, I want to look for a motion for someone to give them the full amount and put it on a lien on the property.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All right, discussion on this topic. Does anyone have any questions about what we're doing? Go ahead, Mr. Councilor Ayers.
Well, I am in favor of Harry splitting of it to make part of it a grant and part of it a lien. I'm totally fine with that.
Okay. So going to Mr. Quinn, is that how you would like the motion to be, some sort of split between lien and loan?
That's fine. I'm fine giving them the money to have them bridge the gap. I don't want it to end up being a windfall if they're able to sell or sell part of it reasonably soon. So I think that covers both bases. I'll amend my motion.
Okay, and I heard the second agree to that. Okay, and then Harry, does you want to throw out a number, or do you just want to trust Harry to come back with us with something reasonable?
The latter.
Councilor Card.
I would just say if we're going to give them the money, I think we should just give them the money, because I think quibbling over the loan or lien is more complex than it needs to be.
I mean, you said it yourself, though, that if we have a loan portion of it, I mean, that's a different beast, right? Because there will be some set time, some amount of years, probably not 20 years from now, that Mura or the city, whomever that entity is getting paid back to, gets a portion back. Oh, still more hands. Okay.
Yep.
Councilor West, we haven't heard from you in 20 minutes.
20 whole minutes. I agree with Mr. Card. I'd rather just give them the money, but I understand the feeling of the board is differently, so I trust Harry to go and make negotiations to figure out all the details.
All right, Councilor Keating.
I don't see any purpose in splitting it up actually at all. What's the benefit? Just actually make the entire thing a lien and
I
keep
feel
it
like
simple.
I'm at a loan committee meeting here at the bank, you know? Well, we are the bank.
So right now on the table, we have a lien loan program that they'll get the full amount, and Harry will work out the details and bring it back to us. Other things that have been talked about are just giving them the full amount and putting on a lien. No one has said give them the full amount and make it a loan.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
We could grant the other thing. We could grant them the money and get rid of the lien process, which is actually what I prefer. Just give them a certain amount and then loan out the rest. And so instead of a forgiveness program like we had previously, Harry can do his magic and say, okay, great. In X amount of years, we get some money back, but they're not fully indebted. So there's our options. Let's move forward on something.
We have a motion.
We have the motion on the table right now is a lien loan program. I'll move back to Councilor Quinn. What would you like to do?
I kind of like what you suggested, partial grant, partial loan with a term, with the understanding that if it's sold for commercial purposes, there's an acceleration and we get it all back then.
But only for the loan part?
Correct.
Okay.
And
Does
we
that
can
make
trust
sense?
Harry.
Does that make sense?
Part
Special
grant,
Projects Manager.
The loan portion, 0% payable on sale, due on sale.
Or a term somewhere out there.
Or a term, some other term.
That's
Okay.
the motion.
Can I make a point of order?
The problem is that you said that you're not going to vote on this.
I'm not going to vote on this, but it's a point of order. It's not to debate. There was a motion made. Jessica interjected to say she liked Harry's proposal, which was a grant lien. And then there was a comment that I thought was from the motion maker that said, yeah, I'm okay with that. And then you said, so we want to go lien loan.
So everything will be restated. So everyone that will vote has an idea of what we're voting on. So Councilor Quinn has now said that he wants a grant loan program. However, the loan will be repaid immediately if for some reason that the property gets sold for commercial enterprises before the whole loan is paid back.
Exactly.
Councilor Zach, are you in agreement with that? Because as the second.
The loan
combo.
Sorry, I'm just trying
Grant.
to grasp it.
So grant means they just get the money.
Yeah.
And then the loan is we'll have some sort of term at 0% that Harry will work out and bring back to us.
And they're making the payments? Or a due at sale?
They will make some payments. They only have to pay everything back all at once if they sell the property to commercial enterprises. Is that acceptable to you as the second?
I mean, I'd like to just see us give it all to them with no lien, but yeah, I would still second it, yeah.
Okay. So does anyone have any question about what we will be voting on? Apparently, our legal assistant has the biggest question about whatever we're voting on. Mr. Benton, you have the floor.
I'll be totally candid. I've heard so many ideas here.
So the only idea
let me restate, if I may, Chair.
Sure.
Let me restate what I hear as a common thread, and see if we've got some direction for staff to try and
All right, hang
do something.
on. I'm going to put this out, and we're going to make sure you have it. Yeah. This is a grant/loan program at 0% interest. How that is structured is up to Mr. Weiss to bring back to the board for ratification. The only way that they will pay the full amount in whole at one point in time is if the property is sold before the loan is fully paid off. Now, let me address the people that actually are looking for money. Is that acceptable? Obviously, the split is something that you'll negotiate with Mr. Weiss. He listens to us, so I'm sure he'll bring back something that works for this board. Is that something that works for you and your organization? It gets you the money up front, and then we understand the situation you're in, and so we're not going to right.
Yeah.
We want your organization to function. We're not going to be,
Totally. I know I definitely appreciate all the thought that has been put into it. I believe it does boil down to, working with Mr. Weiss on what that comes out to. We're just thankful that you guys are considering all options. So the short of it, yes, that works for us. Yeah.
Great.
Does
Thank
timeline
you.
work?
If there's any questions, yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, thank you, yes. No, I thought we were under the gun in terms of time for you. You'd mentioned it a few times. This would delay it at least a month. I would
I believe I gave like a 12-month kind of timeline. So everything I've heard, I don't want to give Mr. Weiss a hard time on how he gets through his workload, but I believe that we'll be able to do this expeditiously.
Speaking for Mr. Weiss, I think he wants to be out the door before 12 months from now.
Yeah, we can make this happen quick. They get their project done, they get the full funding, and we'll just figure out what the split is and how the recovery is done.
Okay.
If that's your direction, we'll go that direction.
All right. Is anyone this restated a third time, including legal staff?
Clear as a very muddy lake. So I think we got enough to work with.
You can replay this whole hour-long conversation if you want to.
I will be watching the replay on this one.
Keep in mind, we will bring a formal proposal to you for approval at your next board meeting to approve whatever the funding mechanism is, at which time you can modify what we've drafted if it doesn't meet your expectations, or if your expectations have changed and you have a generous heart that day and decide, no, it's just going to mull
or a less generous heart. Who knows? All right. Seeing no hands raised, it appears that people know what they're going to be voting on, and we can move forward. Winnie, please call the roll.
John Quinn,
Yes.
Zach Smith, Kevin Stein,
Yes.
Garrett West,
Yes.
Jessica Ayers,
Yes.
Nick Card,
Yes.
Kevin Keating,
Yes.
and Mike Curlinger.
Abstain.
Oh, sorry, abstain. Okay. So we have
Democracy is messy, but hey, look at that. We moved forward. Okay.
Listen, Winnie has to put that in the minutes.
Sorry, Winnie.
That's cruel.
It's like Charlie Brown. Just put like wah 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 wah, and then like the final motion. Okay. Propositions, remarks, of board members. Anyone want to keep talking? Seeing none, we are adjourned at whatever time it is now. 8:35.